Welcome everybody to RAI Talks. This is the Relational AI podcast. We're joined today by Jay Hinton, who's the Global Head of Product for Data Analytics at BNY, the Bank of New York. Jay leads the teams that are responsible for building data products at the bank and helping to lead some of BNY's thought leadership around data architecture and AI strategy, and modernizing the firm's investment book of record, for example, with platforms like Vault and Eagle. And embedding intelligence across some of the core functions. And he's here to share how BNY is evolving from data-centric to decision-centric operations and what it takes to operationalize AI responsibility at a large bank at enterprise scale. Welcome, Jay. Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here.
We love having you here. There's been a lot of anticipation and excitement at Relational AI about having you on the show. We've been enjoying our partnership so far and looking forward to what we build together. Why don't we start with a little, I know it's very interesting, having been at BNY myself before, when we go out into the world, there's not a lot of people that know what BNY is and what it does. So why don't you share a little bit about what BNY is, a little bit about the history of the bank, where we are, and how we find ourselves in today's world at the precipice of what AI is bringing into all of our worlds.
Absolutely. So BNY is fascinating that we're a 240-year-old institution, right? So we are one of the original, if not the oldest bank in the U.S. And one of the things that's interesting about that, founded by Alexander Hamilton, that people may have heard of, our slogan is that we move, manage, and have been keeping money safe for 240 years. And so we are both a core part of how this country started, as well as a key member in the financial ecosystem, handling treasuries, as well as a number of other products around custody, asset servicing, markets, and things like that. So really thinking about our position both in the ecosystem within global finance, as well as a pillar of U.S. Finance. And at the same time, a place where there's technological innovation taking place. Right? And so my team in particular is a team that built software, right? Not something you think of when you think of a bank, particularly not software that we tend to then offer out to clients of the bank, right? As well as clients within the financial ecosystem. And so it's a fascinating position to be in, both as a key part of the world of finance, the world of banking, but also then as a company that's leading with technology that benefits our clients. So we think of both that service offering as well as the technology offering, and how it ultimately improves the outcomes for our clients. We talk about our pillars, we talk about our principles, and really, those are encapsulated both in what we build and what we offer, as well as how we go about doing it. So we think about, running the bank better. We think about being more for our clients. We think about, all of those kind of approaches as being really central to not just how we show up for clients, but also then how we actually build the technology.
Yeah, I love it. I love this idea of running as a fintech within a large regulated entity. I'm sure that comes with its challenges. I'd love to dig deeper into that as well, especially around what you're building.
Sure.
But what's the story of Jay Hinton? Like, what's the story that takes you through your career and brings you to this point where you're at the bank and helping to drive this transformation?
Yeah, great question. So my story is one of problem solving and one of being in interesting places. And by that, I have been fortunate enough to be on the edge of 2 or 3 different technological transformations within the industry. I was somebody who started out on the floor of one of the old regional stock exchanges and was, amazed at just what it meant. I was coming out of a business psychology program at the University of Southern California. And I was like, this is applied psychology in business, and it's fantastic. And the fact that you worked on East Coast hours on the West Coast and could hit the golf course by 3 p.m. was also not terrible. But pretty soon, Archipelago came in and bought the exchange, bought the Pacific Coast Stock Exchange. And then we went through 8ths to 16ths to decimals, and it was this radical transformation. And I ended up working for a technology company where we had an execution management system. We had one of the first web-enabled basket trading. And again, it was really interesting to work and see how algorithms changed, how those trading and execution algorithms changed. And from there, I spent some time in high frequency, low latency trading space. Again, enough to see the transformation there. And so, as I've gone through my career, I've been in wealth technology. I've been around optimizers. I've been working in low latency space. I've worked with, hardware enabled components. And So to find myself now at yet another organization that is both going through changes, the industry changes, but also a direct participant in the next big change, that artificial intelligence and the data revolution, to me is a continuation of that pathway, that I continue to go look out where the things are interesting, right? And continue to go and find out, like, what is the place that's changing the most? Because that's where I gravitate to, whether consciously or unconsciously. I like the stuff that's new. I like the changes that are going on. And I really like, participating in whatever the thing that's changing is. I think in part because it's intellectually satisfying, right, to see that. But also because as a product person, it's where you can have leverage, right? Like nobody, at least nobody that I know in the product side, wants to work on stuff that's just utilities where all you're doing is keeping the lights on. Like you want to go talk to clients and you want to build stuff that you see impact, right? You want to see adoption. You want to be able to say, oh, there's a really cool problem. Oh, here's a novel thing I can go do. And so, once upon a time, I thought I was going to be in engineering. What I discovered was that the part of engineering that really appealed to me was like the doing things. And so like product was a natural outcome of that because I like problem solving.
That's a really fascinating journey. It seems like you've always been at the front of the wave. Every time things shifted in the industry, you were there.
Yeah, I would say some of it intentional, some of it unintentional. It really gives you a perspective on the fact that the pace of change continues to accelerate, and the implications of those changes continue to increase. And so, it's been incredibly rewarding, but also kind of scary at times, right? Like, because being out in front means you don't necessarily know where it's going to go, but it's always interesting.
Yeah. What would you advise for someone who wants to follow those footsteps of, it sounds like it's a combination of luck and curiosity.
I think it is. And I think that luck is absolutely cannot be discounted, right? And so one of the best pieces of advice I heard was increase your surface area of luck. And that is like, go do lots of things, look for the fringes, look for where stuff is going, and increase the opportunities that things might randomly happen to you. Because it changes things. Like no one's career is linear, right? Like we go through ups and downs. And ultimately, somebody asked me recently, they said, on balance, are you happy with the choices that you made? I said, yeah, like on balance, I'm where I want to be, both professionally as well as personally. But I can point to any number of times when you would have asked me that question. The answer might not have been yes, right? Like, because it is that thing where you vacillate, or you swing between poles. There's a book written called The Art of the Long View that was written by one of the guys who came, Peter Schwartz, I think is the guy who wrote it. But he talked about coming out of Pierre Walk's scenario planning group at Shell. And that part of what they were thinking about was long-term, what are changes, and thinking about how this works. And like one of the things that he said that always stuck with me was that, change usually happens from the fringes and drifts in. Change almost never comes from the center. And so like, if you want to know what's interesting, like you need to tune yourself to the fringe. And so things like social media in many ways have made this a whole lot easier now, because like you can just find all the stuff on the web. But that ability to go like, say, who are the people who are doing interesting things? Who are the people who are, producing interesting thinking? Like, where is that kind of fringe stuff that then turns into the next set of trends, the next set of innovations, advancements, all of that, I think is another key component of thinking about, like, where do you want to be? What is interesting to you?
I love it. Love it. And by the way, one of the things I think, even if we ended the podcast right here, I'd be happy. You know why? Because this is really valuable for young people. There's a lot of uncertainty about coming to the workplace now, but this idea that career growth is not linear. We come from a generation where we knew about the career ladder and was just advancement one step at a time. I love that we're in this age now where this non-linear career path is, can be set out as an example for someone to follow.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that, somebody told me one time is that as a human, as a person, one of the best things that you can do is get comfortable with uncertainty. That like, if you can sit with things that are not defined, that are not certain, it opens up all kinds of doors and all kinds of opportunities, because you don't need to nail things down. You can watch them develop, and you can choose where to engage, not engage. And I think about that a lot. I think about, the degree to which I am personally comfortable or uncomfortable with uncertainty across a wide variety of areas.
That's beautiful. I think, and it sounds like it's a learned skill, right? Or do you think it's innate?
I think that some people are certainly more comfortable with it naturally, but I do think it's a thing that you can also learn, right? Like just like everything else. Like you look at meditation, for example, right? Like that's a thing that you might have an aptitude for, but it's a thing that, just like going to the gym, like you learn to do better, and it changes your brain, it changes how you work. Like I think a lot of that's the same thing. Like you can learn to manage your emotional state. You can learn to do that sort of engagement to say what am I comfortable with, what am I not comfortable with, and certainly that naturally the condition of your brain certainly has a large role to play. Not all of us are going to be Alex Honnold and out there like soloing mountains with that sort of comfort with risk. I think, but we can all improve kind of our baseline responses.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. So of course we're going to talk about AI. You know why? Because everyone wants us to talk about AI. But before we get there, like I wanted to set the stage. Tell us about what you're doing at data and analytics. Like what is data analytics within the context of BNY? What are you building? I'd also love to hear what you're hearing from customers. Just to prime the pump there. For example, I noticed that retail started to influence how we thought about technology in the enterprise. Classic example being things like Amazon and Netflix had recommendation engines, and then we had customers coming and asking us for recommendations as an experience in their product journeys. So how much of that are you seeing? What are you hearing from customers? And tell us about what you're building.
Yeah. So keep me honest here and make sure I can tick off all of these. So data and analytics is a part of BNY that produces software. So we have 3 different software kind of capabilities within the company. We have Eagle, performance accounting and data management. This is traditional multi-basis, multi-currency accounting product for the buy side, for asset owners, banks, asset managers, insurance companies. We have a portfolio performance middle office product as well. Again, focused on traditional performance metrics there. Then we also have the newer cloud-native Data Vault product, and that's our data management in the cloud. It has a full suite of governance, ingestion, cleansing, data modeling, and data transformation tools. And then the newest part of the company is a company called Milestone P Control. And P Control is an investment operations tool that sits across accounting platforms and others to be able to provide backup net asset value calculations, as well as NAV oversight, and then some fund allocation tools. And so we have a suite of back office and middle office and data management tools that we build, that we're then expanding both in terms of our presence around the world, as well as capabilities within the platform. AI then plays into that, because when you have that kind of data, it is naturally a feeder then to say, what could you do with it, right? And so we think about AI both in terms of what we're building from a feature enablement, kind of core value proposition enablement. So things like intelligent document processing that we just launched this year was designed to marry what we're doing with data management and the increasing exposure to private markets from our clients, but they have all of this unstructured data, right? They get all these PDFs from the partners that they work with, and that what they really want to do is be able to take all that data that's in PDFs and put it into the system in a structured way. So we used a combination of BNY's Eliza, the AI tool that we build here inside the bank at the AI Hub, and Microsoft's optical recognition technology to be able to look at a PDF, build tables, and then also take the data from it and move it into the system. Again, from a private markets perspective, a super useful thing. And you'll see there are a number of other products that do something similar, in part because like if there's really a problem, right, you see a number of products that try and address that need. The other thing that we think about then is how we take the data, and the next kind of direction we're going is really using AI on top of the data to surface insights. And so that's going to like where we think about the roadmap going, is not just saying, hey, we use AI to improve the efficiencies. Not that it's not important, because it is incredibly important. But really the next thing is to say, okay, and now the second order effect is to be able to generate novel insights on behalf of the clients from their own data, from the combination of their data and our data. To your question about the impact of retail is really interesting. And a great example of that is that if you look at historically the way software has been built, we sit in a space where we are a B2B SaaS company, right? And so oftentimes the users of our product are not necessarily the buyers of the product. This is very common in kind of B2B space. One of the things then that you see is that the user experience is oftentimes not as robust or is not as enjoyable as retail, right? In part because retail, it's really easy to switch between one product to another product. And so the winners are folks who really invest heavily in that user experience. Airbnb is a great example, right? If you look at Airbnb, like one of the things they were founded on was this idea of having a strong user experience that continues to compel people to engage with a platform, and they consistently build on that. They spend an awful lot of time. Similarly, Amazon's famous for their A/B testing, where clients may see one of any number of versions of the software, and they're getting hundreds of thousands. I think somebody said they can get 100,000 views in like 3 seconds or less, right? It's crazy the amount of telemetry and user checking that they can bring to the platform. And so I think about the impact then is that for those of us who are in the institutional space, the bar is constantly being risen. The bar is constantly being raised, rather. That people bring those experiences they have in the retail space to where we're at. And I was recently talking with one of the members of our AI Hub team here, and one of the things that we were talking about was, what are the expectations around our products in comparison with the markets? And like we know that our users are also using ChatGPT. We know that they're also using Anthropic's tools. We know that they're using Perplexity. Like I know that that's the bar that we're being held to. And so as I think about how long it takes to return a search result, or what the prompting windows look like, or any of that, I have to consciously think the fact that I'm competing with firms that are spending more money than ever before in history, right? Like much money that I think the quote was that like 97 or 98% of GDP right now is AI spending.
Right.
If you don't find that a little daunting as somebody in the space, you're probably not grasping the problem, right? It's incredibly exciting, but it also means then that when we think about what quality means and what that user experience means, that we're all running as quickly as we can.
How's that influence how you're thinking about partnerships, both internal and external? I know you're doing some work with platforms and so on, which BNY has been public about, but how does that influence how you work internally with partners to face that force and also collaborate with external partners?
It's a great question, because I think that we start off by talking about the history of the bank and start talking about where we sit in it. One of the things then that also makes that particularly relevant is thinking about where we are and where we want to focus our energies, right? Like everybody else, we have a finite pool of resources and a finite amount of time. And so we want to make sure that we are focused on those areas where we can deliver the most value, where we can make the most progress and can deliver the most impact for our clients. As such, that means that we spend a lot of time partnering, or we spend a lot of time choosing partners who can help deliver outcomes, who are trustworthy, that we can build together, right? And so in some cases, that's making sure that we're picking a partner who has a unique set of capabilities that we can leverage to deliver to clients. In others, it's looking for a partner who can help augment resources, for example, and help us deliver faster. And so, we have a variety of different partnerships, but, the partnership that we have, for example, with RelationalAI is really built around that idea that there's a specialized skill set, there's a specialized technology often, there's a thing that we don't have, that together we can improve the outcomes for clients, right? That we can build on the things that you offer, and that we have a shared vision for what the future looks like. I was recently at TSAM, one of the conferences, and somebody asked us, how do you think about what a winning partnership looks like? Like, what are you looking for? And one of the things I said is that, when you think about strategic partnerships, when you think about who you want to go to market with, especially where you're reliant on a partner in order to deliver a thing that you have promised to your clients, you want to make really sure that you have a shared vision for what the future looks like, and that you are both aligned on what success looks like in the near and the far term, and there's not a divergence there, right? Because if you think the industry is going here, and I think the industry is going here, we're going to make different bets. We're going to make different investments. And ultimately, that's going to result in a divergence of what we're trying to get done in a way that's not helpful. And so I think that, trustworthy, valued partnerships are both built on the past, what has been delivered, what have you done, but also making sure that there's alignment for the future and thinking about where you see things going and what ultimately your organizations really think is important.
No, that's great. And I love this idea of the shared vision, because it helps drive this a sense of mission, right? And I find that it's really great to get people motivated behind that mission when you've got that understanding of, this is where we want to transform the industry, or this is where we want to transform our business. These are the customer outcomes we're going to deliver. It's a lot easier to get people excited around that and actually build a thing that's going to drive that forward.
I think it's a great point. I think that one of the things that has been fascinating is that if you look at some of the early internet companies, if you look at some of the way the industry was, like, there wasn't necessarily this drive for meaning across the organization. Certainly there were in some pockets. But one of the things I think that has been fascinating about the sort of AI revolution, or this AI journey, is how personally meaningful the responses are when people talk about what they're doing. Like, you talk to people who are building frontier models, and as far as I can tell, most of those folks are not showing up for the paycheck. Though the paychecks are very large, like, they're showing up because they really believe in what they're doing. And you talk to people who are working in this space, myself included, who look at the things that we can deliver, who look at what the possibilities are. And it's not just, well, this is an interesting problem. It's, no, but this is a meaningful problem. I think this is a thing that I believe is adding value, that I believe really is improving the lives of the people who are engaged in it, and see a world where, there is not just progress being made, but evolutionary kind of gaps that we're establishing. We're like, that sort of phase change. We're like, we were here, and then all of a sudden we're here, and that sort of hockey stick growth is being enabled by a radically different approach to technology. I told somebody recently that he's not in technology, and we were talking about things, and I had shared with him one of the papers on AI. I said, it was specifically around math, and they were asking, Anthropic was asking the model to explain how it did math, and the answer wasn't true. It was fascinating, because they gave this answer, and then they did the research and showed that no, the model's actually doing something different. I said, okay, this is crazy. Like, I've worked in technology for a long, long time. I've never seen a program that did something that deterministically you didn't program it to do. Like, right. You look at bugs, you look at errors, and like, you can always trace it back to, oh, there was a problem here, and we can see why this race condition, or we can see why this particular outcome happened. But ultimately, you get to the bottom of it. The generative AI stuff is fascinating, in part because you get novel phenomena, right? In a way that we don't have other technologies that do it. So I think that that to me is also a part of this. Is like, it's also this amazing evolving technology sphere that is fundamentally different than we have seen before.
Yeah, no, it's transformative. It's like you suddenly have this ability to take a whole bunch of first principles and throw them in a box and shake it around and see what comes out in a way that we never had the ability to do.
100%. Like, and you think about computer science, generally speaking, has not been the same from an experimental set as your physical sciences or your biological sciences. Are like, yes, it's a science, but you don't go into it testing a bunch of different hypotheses to see what shakes out. Now we're in the space where computer science actually is starting to look more like some of those, where you're like, hey, we have an emergent phenomenon. Why did this happen?
Yeah, love it. I saw this clip from Sam Altman this week that said, if AI can solve quantum gravity, then can we agree that it's AGI?
It's funny because I think there's two schools of thought, and one is, if we don't ever get to AGI, but we aren't smart enough to tell whether it does or not, does it really matter? Like at some point, if you pass the Turing test and you get far enough down the road, is it actually AGI? Like, I don't know that it matters if it does enough things effectively enough. The other is to say that, if it actually gets to AGI, we might not actually ever know, because it'll be smart enough to lie to us about it.
Yeah, it's possible. It may be the kind thing to do. And maybe all of us are just playing with this window between now and the day that AGI becomes a reality, right?
It's 100% true. I think it was Ethan Mollick who said, basically, like, we're in a race to see whoever gets to AGI first, because once you get there, nothing else will matter. That you essentially win capitalism at that point, right? And you get to own all the marbles.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I know you mentioned Eliza and AI Hub earlier in the conversation, but tell us about how those things come together and how BNY is thinking about AI in general, and how much of that intersects with what you're building.
I certainly can't speak for all of AI Hub on behalf of BNY. What I can say is that within BNY, we have Eliza. And Eliza is BNY's proprietary AI platform. We have approximately 98% of employees use it, have been onboarded to it. It gives the ability to both do help with development around things like code assist, as well as give every employee the ability to have their own agent. So we have approximately 40%, that's almost 20,000 employees, who have built their own agents. I just built one again like yesterday. We use it for all kinds of stuff. And it's fascinating because the AI Hub team is both working with frontiers with foundational models and really building a application layer around it that is accessible both via a user interface as well as an API, so that teams internally can build against it. You may have seen the story that was out in the papers about our digital employees. Mm-hmm. We have both engineering, HR, treasuries, like custody, across a whole variety. In our department alone, I think we've got 200 or 300 different use cases for things that we want to do that we're lining up. And some of those are customer facing, some of these are internal only. But the amazing thing with Eliza is that it essentially gives us both a tool set within the organization, within the bank, to use in our day-to-day activities, as well as then in delivering client outcomes. And ultimately, as we think about it, I think it will be a core component of all of the bank's workflows. Right? And so as I think about it in 4 or 5 different areas, right? There is how does it improve my day-to-day working within the bank? How does it improve both when I'm working on, whether it's PowerPoints or Excel or my annual review? It's that time of the year, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's a productivity tool that I use alongside tools like Microsoft Copilot and things like that. It's also an operational tool that we're using within the company to help how we manage the software that we sell as a service to our clients, right? So there's a efficiency play there, as well as we're using it to improve our delivery to clients. Then there's the SDLC component, right? Because I build software, we're thinking about how does it improve my product manager's workflows? How do I make sure that it is helping write, whether it's PRDs, or we're thinking about doing, collating user research and surfacing insights there. Developers, we're thinking about using it in terms of code reviews and things like that. And so, there's a whole SDLC component. Then there's the component around make sure that it's part of what we're doing in terms of product offerings out to clients. So we talked about intelligent data processing. We've got automated metadata classification that we also release to clients that it's powering. So, I have a whole roadmap of tools that I want to offer out to clients as part of Data Vault, as part of Eagle Accounting, as part of performance, that really helps augment and improve those. We have a lot of clients who've started to ask, how do they get access to it? Right? How do they be able to access the Eliza Workbench? How do they use it? And so those are conversations that are going on as well, because for most of our clients, having an AI tool or having access to a suite of AI tools that carry the safety and regulatory comfort and all the things that you get from a custodian who is a GSIFI is very appealing, and also I think something that is easier for them to explain to their shareholders, explain to their constituents. And think, if you say, and because no one wants to be in a position to say, hey, we gave all of our data to OpenAI, and like, cool, can you guarantee the safety and security? And they're like, well, Sam said it's all cool. And you're like, great. We're probably going to need a little more governance than that. And so, I think that governance is a difficult thing to outsource, right? But we do. We certainly with custody and some other activities, like that is part of what's being outsourced. But it comes with it a expectation around auditability, comes with an expectation around transparency, observability, all of those things. And so I think that's the other component as we think about commercializing AI, is like, how do you do that? How do you maintain that sort of auditability, that transparency in a process that can oftentimes be challenging?
Yeah, no, I love that story. And I think I heard 3 key themes, which I haven't heard anywhere else, which I think are amazing, especially coming from an enterprise. I think the first is the democratization of AI, the fact that anybody at BNY can use AI and it's on there, it's accessible to them. The second is this idea of agents. And so, you're elevating everybody in the enterprise to have this level of AI literacy, which I think is critical for the future, which is amazing. And the third is the commercialization. So the ability to take this AI capability that we built inside the bank, but then now turn that into a commercial product that builds on the credibility, the resiliency that the bank is famous for. But now you're offering AI products in a way that brings that same level of trust. It's fantastic. And what a way to kind of lead in the industry.
I gotta say, it's incredibly exciting to be here, and in part because I have a number of peers who are at other organizations where I know they struggle with compliance challenges, and so the fact that where somebody that is from Rob and Vince on down, like everybody in the senior leadership is bought in personally, bought in professionally. Right? It's a place where the firm puts its money where its mouth is, and it's not just in the tool, but like everybody's training, right? Like all of us had a goal to make sure 100% employees were trained on this, to make sure that we're using it in our daily kind of lives and really thinking about this is the foundation for the future. So how do we make sure we're investing in that training for our people? How do we make sure we're investing in data literacy? How are we thinking about making sure that, as we consistently raise the bar, that we're also helping people to meet it, right? And we aren't just saying, hey, here's the thing, we're going to roll it out, and be like, okay, well, you can fend for yourselves. Like, no, if it really is that important, not only do you set goals for people, but then you also give them the tools to be able to use them, to be able to try them out, to be able to meet them, and to be able to discuss and make sure that it does become part of your work standard in your daily life.
That's amazing. That's amazing. As we're winding down, I think we have to zoom out a little bit. The fact that BNY is in the center of the global financial ecosystem as a GSIFI, but also because of the B2B relationships you've got across the financial services ecosystem, how do you see what you've built, what you're building, the vision here cascading across financial services?
Great question. So I think that there's 2 ways of looking at it. The first is from a BNY perspective, the fact that we are leading with AI, that we're really taking and thinking about how we transform the bank and really deliver, means that we're out in the forefront. And so we have fierce competition because there's a lot of other competitors a lot of our peers who also want to be in that same position. And we know that as we think about expanding globally and with a focus on specific regions, that then will help drive a lot of that. But I think at the same time, we think about where we sit within the bank and what we do with our own offering within data and analytics, and similarly think about how we lead and how we differentiate ourselves. And so, it's incredibly exciting to think about how we both maintain that, but also I think that it's important to recognize that competition helps sharpen that, right? Like if you think about analogy, like you look at a sports team, nobody wants an easy win, right? And so like your best performances are ones when you have the fiercest competition. And so I look at that competition, I look at the space really as driving us to be better, driving us to improve our offering, driving us to focus on what matters. We started out talking about partnerships. We talked about kind of what it means to work together. I think this becomes really important because it's part of that foundation that allows you to succeed, right? All the things that can go into it. Like, we can't win on our own. It requires trusted relationships. It requires that ecosystem approach. And so even where there are partners that we sometimes compete with, it's incredibly valuable. And so I look at the entire ecosystem, and a healthy chunk of the folks who are cooperative are also competitors, right? So it's an interesting balance to say that, we're all kind of driving in similar directions and oftentimes competing for client wallet share, client eyeballs, client attention, but that's okay, right? Like, and I think that, we want to be in a position where we want to win. Don't get me wrong. I hate losing. That's hands down. Like, I want to win, but I also want to make sure that we win because everybody is putting out the best efforts they can, and that we really are bringing our A game every time we show up, and that the things that we're doing continue to innovate, that we continue to figure out novel ways of delivering value. We think about improving the efficiencies. We think about accelerating the pace. And that when we fail fast and we fail small so that we can win big.
Love it. And by the way, I think those sentiments would be very inspiring even to us at Relational AI in terms of how we think about the future, but love that sentiment. So as we close out, Jay, what's on your mind? What are you thinking about as you head out into 2026? What are you most excited about? And, what do you possibly have some trepidation about?
Sure. So as I think about 2026, we have a number of things that we have that are kind of in preview state that will be going out to general availability. And so, I'm really excited about kind of the next generation of tools and solutions that we're delivering next year. Being able to see clients use them, see the direct output, and see the outcomes of those. The thing that gives me a little bit of trepidation is just the pace of change and making sure that we're staying abreast of everything that happens from a technology perspective. Again, this is where we rely a lot on partners to make sure that we're accelerating fast, because I think I spent 60 or 70% of my time on the road this year seeing clients, seeing partners out there. I don't think it's going to slow down next year. Mm-hmm. I think that there's so much to do. There's so much excitement here that we're going to stay busy. And I'm incredibly excited about what that means for clients, about how we can deliver more value, how we can help them improve their experiences, their asset management approaches, like you name it, across the board. And so, 2026 is going to be another amazing year. Like, when I think back to where we were at the beginning of 2025, I started out the year talking to people and I said, what's your 3-year roadmap? What's your 4-year roadmap? And my response was, well, it's changing all the time. And they said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, you show me your roadmap and show me where AI was in 2020. And they're like,
right.
No, I'm like, right. So what I'm pretty sure about is that, there's going to be a whole lot of acceleration, and the opportunities, the innovation, and what we can accomplish is going to be far and above what I think it is right now.
Yeah, well, that's a great way to think about it. Adaptability and the ability to work with the way things are changing is more of a skill than being able to plan something out that far ahead.
100%.
Yeah. Well, Jay, this has been wonderful. I got to say, I appreciate it and can't wait to share your message with the world. It's been so much fun working with you, and I'm really glad that we have this partnership and love telling your story.
This has been great, Sid. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate talking with you. It's always fantastic. So would love to come back and do it again.